And as I mentioned in the culminating projects, it should be able to allow students to articulate their conceptual knowledge and their procedural knowledge that you cover through that unit. So now we're going to talk about conceptual versus procedural knowledge. Conceptual is just a big understanding that can be used to think and discuss with. So what are the big ideas in your content area or that you're dealing with in that particular unit? And then the procedural, it's what students need to be able to do to participate in the debate as novice experts, to participate in creating cultural knowledge and understandings. This goes back to the skills. So you can look at the skills in the standards that you identified, and some of those skills can be some of the procedural knowledge that students need to be able to do in order to get to that culminating activity. You've identified those big skills and the big concepts. Okay, how are you going to get there? What steps? What other skills do they need to get there? All activities should allow students to explore conceptual tools and practice procedures and strategies related to inquiry. They're often related to the standards. And as we've discussed over and over, the Common Core standard just emphasizes these skills. So to give you an idea of conceptual versus procedural knowledge, this was a really hard concept for me to get for some reason when I went through the Inquiry Institute, and this was a few years back. And I was telling Kelly on the drive here, because we were discussing what were the really hard components of inquiry that we had trouble with. This was mine. I couldn't even articulate to her what my problem was, what I wasn't getting. There was just something was not connecting for some reason. I could define it. I could define each one because I can read a definition, but that's really what I was doing. And I had Jeff gave me an example, and our other professor, Jim Fredrickson, he gave us an example. And then finally, with my mother-in-law, actually, we were doing something, and I said, you have the procedural knowledge, but you don't have the conceptual knowledge, so you can't transfer this over to this other situation. And it just clicked for me for some reason. So again, we're presenting a lot of material for you. If you get that, that's awesome. But if there's some component that you're struggling with, you're not the only one. That's why I share that story. So conceptual versus procedural knowledge, going back to the idea of cooking. So my mom, she makes the best, it's not really an argument, it's a fact, the best flour tortillas, okay? And when I got married, my husband was really excited after tasting. He was like, do you make these? I said, no, I have my mom make them. He was so upset. I said, it's okay, she loves to cook. We just order them with her. And one day I thought, okay, you know what? It's time, I want to finally make these. Like, okay, show me. And she said, well, just come over. I'm going to make them Sunday. I said, okay, now where's the recipe? She's like, what? She doesn't have a recipe. She doesn't have a recipe for most of her cooking. She has the conceptual knowledge of cooking. She has that down. I don't have that, especially for tortillas. And so I said, okay, fine. We're going to do this. So I had her literally put in the flour, and I said, stop, freeze. And then I took out the flour and I measured that and I put it back. I said, okay, go on. And she just stood there and said, really? We're going to do this for each step? I'm like, I'm creating your recipe. So I got the recipe then, right? And I saw her and she told me this is what the dough should look like. Do you see? Like, oh, okay. So I went home and then I was making it. I followed the recipe, and then the dough was not looking the same, and I called her, Mom, the dough is like sticky. Well, did you use warm water? I don't know. Did you tell me that? That's not in your recipe. You know, I didn't think of writing that down. So she had all this conceptual knowledge, but she couldn't articulate. I followed the recipe. I had it. I had the procedures down. All of them, and I followed the same ingredients. I took the exact same flour that she had. It should have been the same, right? But because I did not have the conceptual knowledge, the understanding, like the science behind, if the dough is this, then add more flour or add more water or make sure you knead it and this is what you're looking for. And a lot of that she has gained from experience, which I later found out from my grandma. So, because she didn't share how long it took my mom. My mom never shared how long it took her and how much practice for her to get those best tortillas. Funny how she didn't share that. So she could modify that recipe to make it the tortillas the way that were good, were edible really. But I didn't have that understanding. I couldn't do that. She had the conceptual and she had the procedural. I had the procedural. I'm still working on the conceptual part. So that's just to give you an idea of the difference between those two.